Have you ever had that quiet panic hit you on a random Tuesday afternoon? You're sitting at work, maybe it's after lunch, your inbox is full, your back hurts a little from sitting too long, and for no clear reason, your mind drifts into the future. You picture yourself older, gray hair, slower mornings, maybe grandkids, maybe not, maybe just you in a smaller apartment or a quiet house that suddenly feels too big, and then the question slips in, will I be okay? Not just emotionally, financially. Will there be enough? Enough to pay rent, enough to cover groceries, enough to fix the car when it breaks, enough to say yes to dinner with friends instead of pretending you're busy because you're trying to save. That question carries weight. It sits in your chest, and most people respond to it the same way. I need to save more. So you cut small things. You skip trips. You delay replacing your phone. You pack lunches even when you're exhausted. You move numbers around in your head late at night, wondering if you're doing enough. But what if I told you there's a specific day in your life when something changes? A day when your retirement funds start working harder than you do. A day when your contributions stop being the main driver of your future. A day when saving becomes optional, not irresponsible, not reckless, just optional. Most people don't even realize the day exists, and when it arrives, they miss it. Let's talk about why. Most of us grow up believing retirement is a finish line you sprint toward by saving as much as possible for as long as possible. The narrative sounds like this: work hard, save consistently, invest steadily, do this for 30 or 40 years. Eventually you stop. It feels linear, like filling a bucket with a cup of water. You keep pouring until the bucket is full. But that mental model is incomplete, because money in a retirement account isn't just sitting there waiting for you to feed it. It's moving, it's growing, it's compounding. And compounding doesn't grow in a straight line. It grows quietly at first, almost invisibly. For years, it feels like nothing dramatic is happening. You look at your account, and it's higher than before, but not life-changing. It feels slow, ordinary. So you assume the only way forward is to keep pushing hard. Save more, earn more, sacrifice more. But here's what most people misunderstand. In the early years, your contributions are doing the heavy lifting. The money you add each month is the main source of growth. But over time, something shifts. The growth generated by the money already invested begins to rival your contributions. Then it matches them. Then eventually, it surpasses them. There comes a point where the interest and market growth in a single year are larger than everything you personally added. That's the quiet turning point, and emotionally, it changes everything. Let's make this simple. Imagine someone in their early 30s investing consistently, nothing extreme. Maybe they're putting aside a few $100s a month. They're not living in luxury, but they're not living in misery either. At first, most of the account growth comes from what they deposit. If they put in $6,000 in a year, maybe the account grows by $6,500 total. The extra $500 is market growth. It feels modest, but fast forward 15 or 20 years. Now the account balance is much larger, and when the market has a decent year, it might grow by $15,000 or $20,000 without the person adding a single extra dollar. Pause for a second. That's when something profound has happened. The account is no longer a bucket you're filling, it's a machine. And machines don't require constant effort once they're built. They require maintenance and patience. This is the day your retirement funds start working without you. And here's the psychological twist. Most people don't trust it. They've been trained to believe safety only comes from effort. If I stop pushing, I'll fall behind. If I reduce contributions, I'm being irresponsible. If I enjoy my money now, I'm stealing from my future. So even when the math shifts, the mindset doesn't. Let's zoom out for a second. Think about your relationship with work. For many people, work is more than income. It's identity, it's routine, it's validation. It's how you prove to yourself that you're responsible. Saving money often carries the same emotional weight. It's proof that you're disciplined, proof that you're thinking ahead, proof that you're not like the version of yourself you fear becoming. So when someone says there may come a time when saving becomes optional, it can feel threatening. Optional sounds like lazy. Optional sounds like careless. But that's not what this is. This is about recognizing when momentum has taken over. Let's talk through a real-life scenario. Picture someone in their 40s. They've been investing for 20 years. Not perfectly. They had years they skipped. Years when they could only contribute small amounts. Years when life happened. Medical bills, family support, job transitions. But overall, they stayed consistent. Now their retirement account has grown to a point where, on average, it increases by more in a year than they could realistically contribute. If they normally save $10,000 annually, but their investments grow by $25,000 in a solid year, something has changed. Even if they reduced contributions or paused for a year, the engine would still run. That realization doesn't mean they should quit their job tomorrow or stop thinking about the future. It means the pressure shifts. It means the relationship with money softens. It means saving is no longer survival mode. It becomes strategic choice. And this is where behavior matters more than math. Because at this stage, the biggest risk isn't undersaving. It's panic. It's overreacting to market dips. It's making drastic changes because headlines are scary. When your account is large enough that growth outpaces contributions, your job changes. You're no longer the builder, you're the steward. And stewards think differently. They think long term. They tolerate fluctuation. They don't confuse short-term volatility with failure. This is why psychology matters so much in retirement planning. Money is math, but staying invested is emotional. If someone has reached that turning point where growth carries more weight than contributions, but they pull everything out in fear, during a downturn, they interrupt the machine. And rebuilding momentum is harder than maintaining it. So when we talk about the day saving becomes optional, we're not talking about recklessness. We're talking about trust. Trust in time. Trust in consistency. Trust in the years of discipline that built the foundation. Let's bring this back to something personal. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that even if you didn't add another dollar to your retirement account, it would likely continue growing enough over the next 20 years to support you. Imagine what that does to your stress level. Suddenly, every career decision feels different. You're not chained to the highest paying option. You can choose stability over chaos. You can choose flexibility over burnout. You can say no to overtime without guilt because your future isn't entirely dependent on what you squeeze out of the next 12 months. That's freedom, not flashy freedom, quiet freedom, and it usually arrives without fanfare. No one sends you a notification that says, "Congratulations, your investments now generate more growth than you contribute." You have to notice it. You have to run the numbers occasionally and step back. You have to ask a simple question. If I stopped contributing today and left this invested for 20 more years, what might it reasonably grow into? This isn't about predicting exact outcomes. Markets fluctuate. Life changes. Nothing is guaranteed. It's about understanding trajectory. If your trajectory already points toward enough, then your strategy can shift from aggressive accumulation to balanced living. This is where the mindset shift happens. Most people live as if retirement is something you earn only at the very end. But in reality, financial independence happens gradually. There are stages. First, you rely entirely on your labor. Then you rely on your labor plus a small amount of capital growth. Then your capital growth becomes meaningful. Then it becomes dominant. Eventually, your labor becomes optional. The turning point we're talking about sits somewhere in the middle of that progression. It's when capital growth overtakes contributions, and it changes how you see time. Instead of thinking, "I need to grind for 20 more years," you start thinking, "I need to protect what I've built and give it time." Time becomes your ally instead of your enemy. Now let's make this even more grounded. Think about rent. Think about groceries. Think about helping a parent or paying for a child's school expenses. These are real present-day pressures. When you're aggressively saving, every expense feels like it's stealing from your future. You feel tension at the grocery store. You hesitate before clicking buy. You calculate the cost of a weekend trip in terms of years of compounding loss. But when your retirement funds have reached that tipping point, you can loosen your grip. You can still be thoughtful. You can still plan. But you don't have to feel like every dollar not invested is a mistake. And here's something subtle. Often, the people who reach this stage still feel behind. They compare themselves to others with larger portfolios. They focus on what they didn't maximize. They replay financial mistakes from their 20s. But comparison is endless. The real benchmark isn't someone else's number. It's your future needs. If your current invested balance, growing at a reasonable long-term rate, plausibly reaches a number that supports your lifestyle, then you've already crossed a powerful threshold. This is why the day saving becomes optional isn't about a specific dollar amount. It's about alignment. Alignment between your projected future and your current trajectory. Now let's talk about how someone might approach this practically. First, clarity matters. You don't need complex spreadsheets, but you do need a rough estimate of what your retirement lifestyle might cost. Not fantasy luxury, not worst-case disaster, just realistic living, housing, food, healthcare, utilities, some room for enjoyment. Then you compare that to what your current invested assets might grow into over time. If the gap between where you're headed and what you'll need is small or non-existent, you've likely reached that turning point. At that stage, instead of pouring every extra dollar into investments, you might redirect some toward present quality of life. Maybe you work slightly fewer hours. Maybe you invest in skills that make your job less stressful rather than more lucrative. Maybe you build an emergency cushion that gives you peace of mind instead of chasing higher returns. This is not about stopping discipline. It's about adjusting intensity. There's a difference. Intensity is sprinting. Discipline is steady walking. Once the machine is running, sprinting isn't necessary. Steady is enough. Let's address a fear that often surfaces here. What if the market crashes? It will. At some point, it always does. But if your horizon is still long, downturns are part of the process, not the end of it. When your contributions used to be the main driver, market crashes felt devastating because they erased months or years of personal sacrifice. But when your growth is driven by scale, volatility becomes something you ride through, not something you fight. Again, this is about psychology. The bigger your portfolio becomes, the more important emotional stability becomes, because dramatic reactions cause more damage than temporary declines. Now let's talk about identity. Many people tie their sense of worth to productivity, to saving, to optimizing. When they finally reach a stage where saving is optional, they feel strangely unmoored. If I'm not maximizing every dollar, who am I? This is where maturity comes in. Maturity is recognizing that money is a tool, not a scoreboard. If the tool is already built and functioning, your job isn't to polish it endlessly. Your job is to live, to use your time wisely, to show up for relationships, to protect your energy. There's a quiet confidence that comes from knowing your future isn't fragile, and that confidence changes how you move through the world. You negotiate differently, you rest differently, you plan differently, you stop saying yes out of fear. And here's something important. Not everyone reaches this point at the same age. Some people get there in their 40s, some in their 50s, some later. There's no universal timeline. What matters is consistency and awareness. You don't need to be extreme. You don't need to chase every trend. You need time in the market and emotional steadiness. The day your retirement funds start working without you is not dramatic. It's not a celebration. It's subtle. It's the day you realize that compounding has momentum, and momentum, once built, is powerful. If you're early in your journey, this might feel far away. That's okay. In the early years, the focus really is on building the base, because without scale, there's no machine. But if you're mid-career, feeling tired, wondering if you can keep this pace forever, it's worth checking your numbers. You might be closer than you think, and if you are, you don't need to make dramatic changes overnight. You simply need to shift your internal narrative from "I must constantly add more" to "I must protect and give this time." That shift reduces anxiety. It softens urgency. It makes room for balance. In the end, retirement isn't about escaping work. It's about reducing fear. It's about reaching a place where your survival doesn't depend entirely on your next paycheck. The day saving becomes optional isn't about indulgence. It's about security built through patience. And if you're not there yet, that's not failure. It just means you're still building. Building takes time. But the beautiful part of compounding is that it rewards time disproportionately. The first decade feels slow. The second feels noticeable. The third feels powerful. So wherever you are, keep perspective. If you're building, stay steady. If you've built momentum, protect it. And if you've reached the point where your retirement funds grow more from themselves than from you, allow yourself to breathe. Allow yourself to enjoy some of what you've created. Progress doesn't require perfection. It requires patience. And one quiet day, without announcement, you'll look at your accounts and realize something subtle but profound. You're no longer carrying the entire future on your back. Your money is carrying part of it for you, and that changes everything.